We need to trust each other. We can't fight a war amongst ourselves. We have so many enemies now.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Talking Thrones. Once again, I am joined by GrayArea, and today we are going to finish our predictions for Jon Snow. If you did not see the first video, go check that one out, then come back here, but we're pretty much going to pick up right where we left off. I believe the last question I asked GrayArea was about Jon Snow's parentage and how everyone in the North, more specifically Winterfell, will react to this news now that they're going to find out Jon Snow is actually a Targaryen and the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. So what I want to ask you, Gray, is how do you think everyone will react to this, especially Jon's family? What do you think they're going to say to him when they find out he's actually a Targaryen? Because we all know how Sansa Stark feels about Targaryens.
So Sansa has this thing in her mind where Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna and raped her. Sansa tells Littlefinger that in the Crypts. Sansa could really come out of this really disliking Jon, like Catelyn, just because he was born. And there's like all these things in the books where Sansa is compared to Catelyn. She's more like Catelyn, like Littlefinger. When they're talking about being a traitor, Sansa being a traitor, and he's talking with Cersei, Littlefinger says like she's more the mother than the father.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I could see Sansa like having this kind of loathing feeling for Jon, like you're the king and my father raised you as a brother. Your dad raped my aunt. Like she could have that. Like I don't want her to have that, but I'm not sure. Like she's always a wild card for me because you never know what she's gonna do.
Yeah, and we've still seen a lot of tension between those two. And even though in the show they never showed a scene with Jon and Sansa together until they reunited, and Sansa said she was always mean to Jon when they were younger, and we never really understood that because in the show they don't show those scenes. But in the books you do get more hints as to how Sansa feels about Jon, because when Arya thinks about Jon, it's always in a loving way. He's my brother. But when Sansa thinks about Jon, it's always her bastard brother.
Yeah.
She never considers Jon her true brother like Bran and Arya and even Robb did.
Yeah, she's more like Catelyn. Look, I keep saying that she's not gonna be loyal to Jon.
How far do you think they will take that? Do you think something bad can come out of that based off of how she will feel towards Jon? Or do you think that quote from last season will be echoed again in season 8 about the lone wolf dying and the pack surviving? Do you think she'll eventually realize that she needs her family, and she will realize that Jon is her brother no matter who his parents are, and that they need each other?
I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt because I'm like 50-50 on Sansa.
I'm just hoping, based on how season 7 ended, Sansa will be full Team Stark at this point and stop trying to undermine Jon or think of ways that she can keep Winterfell for herself if something would happen to Jon.
Well, now that you say that, she might be happy that he is the rightful heir to the Seven Kingdoms, because then she would be next in line for Winterfell.
Yeah, that's true, because we know Bran doesn't want it. He said he'll never be Lord of Winterfell. And I could easily see Jon letting Sansa keep her position because he don't give a shit, and he never really felt truly at home in Winterfell, although that is his home.
Yeah, so that maybe she'll be happy about that, but then you also have to think like, well, he has to win the throne first. So I don't like she's a major wild card.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Basically, since we've pretty much set up everything that's going to happen when Jon gets to Winterfell, where do you think Jon will make his first contact with the Night King? Do you think they will battle for the first time in Winterfell, or do you think Jon will try to prevent that from happening by meeting the Night King somewhere else before he can get there?
Okay, so when I gave my prediction, is this is solely based on the show, because in the books I think it's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
But in the show, with like the filming stuff, the filming news and everything that we have, I feel like there is going to be a battle, a great big battle at Winterfell. Like those big huge sets with the siege towers and stuff. I think that might be Winterfell. And if they're building it big like that, it's going to be a battle there.
Yeah, they've pretty much completely remodeled Winterfell and fitted the entire castle with siege weapons and other type of defensive weapons. And we know pretty much the entire main cast is heading there. And that's the castle we know the most. That's the one that feels most like home in the north. And that's a location that just on a filming aspect, they already have built and us familiar with. And like you said, by the photos that have came out thus far, we're definitely going to see shit pop off in Winterfell. And I have a feeling that's going to be one of the Night King's targets. He might take out a few smaller places on the way, and that'll be kind of how the show deals with slowing him down a little bit so Jon can get home and deal with all the him being a Targaryen and Daenerys showing up and all that other kind of stuff before he eventually has to face him in the field.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. We have all of these Unsullied and all of these Dothraki that are all going to be coming to Winterfell, but they're all not going to be able to fit inside of Winterfell's gates, inside of their walls. So they're going to have like tents outside of the walls and things like that, like Dothraki tents. And I think we did see some Dothraki tents from filming. Those people are going to be the ones encountering the White Walkers first, the Dothraki and the Unsullied. So he might see the Night King, but his first contact might happen further south, because I think they're going to have to kind of run for it.
Really?
To me, the Night King attacking Winterfell doesn't make sense, because Winterfell has all these magical properties and it just doesn't make sense. But for the show standpoint, like, people are more familiar with Winterfell, like you said. And if the Night King has this dragon, and you can't really put the other two dragons up against this dragon, especially when they're vulnerable to just be taken out of the sky very easily. So the only person that could basically fight the Night King is Daenerys on Drogon, because Drogon will be a little bit, he's going to have a rider, so he's more easily controlled. He can duck things, like we've seen Drogon duck things, but Drogon was still hit by the scorpion. So they're vulnerable. So what should happen is the dragons should be put into the crypts of Winterfell, because we know that from the books that dragons can go into the crypts. They've been in the crypts before. There's a rumor that Vermex laid dragon eggs inside the crypts, and one of the Targaryen kings, I can't remember one Targaryen king or another, put his dragon in the crypts of Winterfell while he was negotiating with Cragen Stark. So that's a thing in the books, but in the show, can the dragons fit inside the crypts? I don't know. But I feel like the dragons need to be kept away from the fight.
We could almost see something like that, because when that dragon was put into the crypts, that was during the Pact of Ice and Fire. And you could almost say we're going to see something similar to that with Daenerys showing up there and her having to ingratiate herself with the Starks.
Yep.
So it could be another Pact of Ice and Fire, basically like, hey, I know we have our differences. I know a lot of bad blood was shed between our families in the past, but we need to stand together if we're going to survive this winter. And while they're there, she could keep them down there. But I feel like when the battle happens, they almost have to use those dragons, even if Viserion is a lot more powerful and a lot more faster, and the White Walkers could possibly be chucking javelins while the Night King is on his dragon. But I feel like they're going to need to use them in order to take him down. We're going to have to see some sort of a dance of dragons between the ice and fire dragons.
Yeah, definitely, but I don't know if it's at first contact. You know what I mean? I feel like there'll be more than one battle. Like, I feel like something's going to happen at Winterfell. And then something's going to happen, there's going to be like an attack on Winterfell. And then further to the south, there'll be a big battle in the Riverlands.
How do you think they will be able to flee and everybody make it safely to another position to fight without the Night King and his army being right there on them the whole time?
I don't think a lot of people will escape. I think a lot of people will be made in. So it depends on, does he attack with the dragon? Does he attack with the whites? If he attacks with the whites, I feel like it'll be easier to escape, or Winterfell could stand. People could literally just go in the crypts and wait for him to pass over. The crypts, I believe, are magical. I think in the books, the reason that I don't really want him to go to Winterfell and don't think that it makes sense for him to go to Winterfell, because I think if he tries to go to Winterfell, those dead kings in those crypts will come back to life.
Yeah, there's a lot of hints at that happening with all the clues in the books about the Stone Kings with their eyes of ice and Jon seeing the kings stumbling out of their tombs and all that kind of stuff. It seems like they could, if they chose to do so, because the bodies weren't burnt is one thing, but there is magic, like you say. So, but if the Night King could get down inside of there, it's hard to say what he could do. He could possibly raise those kings.
Yeah, but I think because of the magic inside those crypts that he can't raise those. Like, if those kings are raised, they're going to be raised to oppose him. They won't be fighting for him. So I feel like he would kind of want to stay away from Winterfell. Plus, we know Winterfell has magical properties. The crypts in the First Keep is built by the Children of the Forest. But for it to be for TV, 6 episodes, there has to be some kind of escape.
Now, we do know there are secret passages out of Winterfell because Maester Luwin told Theon back in like season 2 that there is secret ways to escape if he needed to escape from Winterfell when Ramsay Bolton had his men around the castle.
Yeah, he did tell him that. And the White Knife is a river that's really close to Winterfell, and it leads to White Harbor. And at White Harbor is the Wolf's Den. Inside the Wolf's Den is an ancient weirwood. And inside there, a pact was made. Not sure about exactly what that pact was, but there was a king. I think his name was Brandon Stark. And he, on a cruel winter, and his nickname was Ice Eyes. He went down the White Knife. It was frozen. He went down the White Knife and killed the raiders in the Wolf's Den. And also, the Wolf's Den was built by King Jon Stark. So I feel like they could escape that way. And they might like take a secret passage that leads them to the White Knife. And they wind up at the Wolf's Den. Because Bran is going to need, like, if they have to escape Winterfell, Bran is going to need access to a weirwood. I feel like, though, in the crypts of Winterfell, it's a lot like that cave. So the roots of the weirwood may be, like, if he was to go in the crypts of Winterfell, he could probably still access the roots of the weirwood. But he's going to need to be near a weirwood in order to be effective.
Yeah, and man, I'm trying to remember this quote now that you just said that. It was at the end of one of Bran's chapters when he was escaping Winterfell after Theon took it over. He says something. It's at the very end of his chapter, and he's thinking about how Winterfell is burned and on fire. And he's like, Winterfell's not broken like me. The roots of the weirwood run deep underground, and as long as they stay and the Stone Kings stay, Winterfell will stand, or something like that.
Yeah. Because Winterfell was built by the Children of the Forest, right? And Brandon the Builder.
Yeah.
But the only parts of Winterfell that was built by the children are the crypts. Everything else was added over time.
Absolutely.
So the crypts and the first keep, which has been rebuilt, but that's the important thing. The important thing is the crypts. And the crypts almost to me seem like a bomb shelter. They can go into the crypts and wait for winter to pass and just say, forget everyone.
Yeah, they could. If they had enough provisions down there, they could camp out down there for a while. But I wanted to ask you something. Will the magic in Winterfell hold up now that we've seen the Night King tear down the magical wall with a magical ice dragon? Could he penetrate through that magic in Winterfell now that he's pretty much at his maximum powers too at this point, similar to how Bran's powers are increasing? Do you think that magic would still hold up with him having that ice dragon?
I think that magic will hold up as long as there's a Stark in Winterfell. And the reason that I say this is the reason that the magic was broken. The magic was broken in the wall. And the reason the magic was broken is because the Night's Watch did not stay true. The Night's Watch, when they stabbed Jon, they broke the magic in the wall. They weakened it because they didn't stay true. They stabbed their Lord Commander to death.
Mormont too.
Yeah, they didn't stay true.
Yep.
I think that as long as the Night's Watch stays true, was part of that magic that was holding the wall up. Because this magical wall shouldn't be able to be destroyed by anything.
Right.
Because it's strong magic. And then you have to look at the saying, there always needs to be a Stark in Winterfell. No one knows why the hell they say that, but maybe that's part of the magic.
Yeah, it definitely has something to do with that, and it has something to do with the Night King being able to destroy the place or take over the place or raise the crypts or anything like that. Like all of those sayings, a Stark needs to remain in Winterfell. Winter is coming. There's another one. But basically, all that old Stark stuff has to do with the castle itself and the others, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you look at the wall at the Night Fort, there's a magical door there, and it's like shaped like a weirwood, and its mouth opens up, and the Night's Watch could pass through, but only a Night's Watch can pass through, like nobody else. So their magic resonates with like people, you know what I mean? Like so only the Night's Watch can pass through this door. So of course whatever magic is going on in Winterfell has to do with a Stark in Winterfell. So only a Stark in Winterfell must be able to access whatever magic this is.
Yeah, and it might even be tied into the weirwood tree too, because why the Night's Watch can only pass through the wall is because of the vow or the oath that they say in front of the weirwood tree, and Winterfell has that weirwood system there too.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And that's all of this basically is why I think Winterfell will not fall.
I agree. I don't think it'll fall.
I don't either. And I want to ask something that we were talking about earlier about dragons, a dance of dragons. Do you think Jon will ever ride Rhaegal in season 8 to fight the Night King?
Yes, I do think he will. I think he has to. I don't necessarily know if it'll be Rhaegal or Drogon. I know a dragon will only take one rider, but I want it to be Drogon. I want it to be the biggest and the baddest dragon, but I ultimately do think it'll be Rhaegal, and I just hope that it isn't corny, as I've told you before.
Yeah, I hope so too. But with Jon riding Rhaegal, assuming that's the dragon he rides, if he rides a dragon, and Dany riding Drogon, do you think that would be enough to stop the Night King? Or do you think it's going to take something even more magical than dragon power? Do you think Bran's going to have to control something or get inside the Night King's mind? Do you think Jon would need a sword like Lightbringer to bring him down? What ultimately will Jon and everybody else need to do to actually beat him?
Dang, that's like $1 million question.
I know.
I don't think no one knows that.
I know. Well, what's your guess? Yeah, what's your prediction for that? What do you think?
So all the legends that we know of